Commander Zeke Thor stepped off the transport shuttle and looked at the human military academy before him. The building looked normal enough from the outside. Gray concrete walls, training fields, and what the humans called flags flying in the wind. He adjusted his uniform with 2 of his 4 arms and checked his recording device with the other 2. This was supposed to be a simple observation mission. The Galactic Confederation wanted to know how Earth trained its soldiers. He had reviewed the reports during his journey. Earth was new to the Confederation, and their military was small compared to other species. The humans had insisted on keeping their own training methods, which seemed odd. Most species adopted the standard Confederation practices, but humans wanted to do things their own way. Zeke Thor's mission was to observe and report back. A human female approached him. She was shorter than him, which was normal since Xanthari stood nearly 7 feet tall. She wore a dark green uniform with various symbols on it. Commander Zeke Thor, I'm Instructor Lisa Martinez. Welcome to the North American Defense Institute. Zeke Thor made the human gesture of extending one hand. Humans seemed to prefer this over the Xanthari method of touching foreheads. Thank you for having me, Instructor Martinez. I look forward to observing your training methods. Lisa smiled. Great. Let's start with the morning exercises. The cadets are just getting warmed up. They walked across the grounds toward a large open field. Zeke Thor could hear shouting in the distance. As they got closer, he saw approximately 50 young humans running in formation. They wore matching gray shirts and black pants. Their faces were red and covered in sweat. How long have they been running? Zeke Thor asked. About 30 minutes, Lisa said. They do 5 kilometers every morning before breakfast. Zeke Thor made a note in his device. 5 kilometers seemed excessive for a warm-up. Most Confederation soldiers ran perhaps 1 kilometer at most. A loud voice cut through the air. Move it, people. My grandmother runs faster than you, and she's been dead for 10 years. Zeke Thor turned to see another instructor, a tall human male with gray hair, shouting at the running cadets. The humans seemed to respond by running faster. That's Instructor Jake Morrison, Lisa explained. He runs the combat training program. He insults them, Zeke Thor observed. This is meant to motivate? Works pretty well, Lisa said with another smile. After the run, the cadets formed lines on the field. Jake Morrison walked back and forth in front of them. All right, listen up. Today we're doing adaptive environment training. Find a partner and get ready. The cadets paired off quickly. Zeke Thor watched as they entered a large building nearby. Inside was what looked like a destroyed city. Broken walls, collapsed structures, and debris everywhere. Is this building damaged? Zeke Thor asked. No, we built it that way, Lisa said. It's meant to simulate urban combat conditions. Jake Morrison blew a whistle. The cadets immediately scattered, taking positions behind walls and rubble. Begin. What happened next made Zeke Thor's recording device work overtime. The cadets began fighting each other hand to hand while navigating through the destroyed environment. One male cadet grabbed his opponent and threw him through a wooden wall. The wall broke apart with a crash. Stop, Zeke Thor shouted. That cadet is injured. The thrown cadet stood up, shook his head, and continued fighting. Jake Morrison looked at Zeke Thor. He's fine. The walls are designed to break. That's why we call it adaptive environment training. They learn to use their surroundings. You teach them to throw each other through walls? Among other things, Jake said. A female cadet with short brown hair executed a complicated throw that sent her opponent rolling across the ground. She helped him up afterward, and they both smiled. That's Cadet Amy Collins, Lisa said. One of our best hand-to-hand specialists. After the exercise ended, Zeke Thor approached Amy. She was wrapping tape around 3 of her fingers. Are you injured? He asked. Oh, these? Amy looked at her fingers. Yeah. Broke them yesterday in practice. No big deal. No big deal? You have broken bones. Amy shrugged. They'll heal. Besides, pain is just weakness leaving the body. Zeke's Thor's translator had difficulty with that phrase. He made several notes in his device. The humans seemed to view injury as expected rather than something to prevent. The afternoon brought more surprises. Lisa took him to observe a survival skills class. 20 cadets stood outside a large tank filled with water. There was a door at the bottom. "What is this?" Zeke's Thor asked. "Underwater escape training," Lisa said. They go into the room, we lock the door, and the room fills with water. They have to find the way out before they run out of air. This seems dangerous. That's why we have the medical team standing by. Lisa pointed to 3 humans in white uniforms standing nearby with equipment. Standing by? Not preventing? They only help if someone can't get out, Lisa explained. But that rarely happens. Most cadets figure it out. Zeke's Thor watched as the first group of 5 cadets entered the chamber. The door sealed behind them. Through a window, he could see water pouring in from above. The cadets remained calm, searching the walls for the exit mechanism. The water rose to their waists, then their chests, then their necks. "They are running out of air," Zeke's Thor said. "They have about 2 more minutes," Lisa said, checking her watch. One cadet found a lever hidden behind a panel. The door opened, and water rushed out. The cadets emerged, coughing and gasping but smiling. "Good job," Lisa called out. Next group. Later that day, Zeke's Thor observed a mountain training exercise. Cadets were running up a steep hill while carrying another cadet on their backs. One young male named Ryan Parker had a cadet nearly his own size draped across his shoulders. He was breathing hard, but kept climbing. "This builds strength and trust," Lisa explained. "They learn to rely on each other." "It builds exhaustion," Zeke's Thor countered. "In the Confederation, we use machines to measure strength." "Maybe," Lisa said. "But it works for us." By evening, Zeke's Thor was reviewing his notes in the quarters they had provided him. He had documented 17 separate violations of Galactic Confederation safety protocols. The humans threw each other through walls. They broke bones and called it normal. They nearly drowned their students as training. They forced exhaustion as a teaching method. He began writing his first report. Day 1 observations of Human Military Academy reveal concerning patterns. Humans appear to have no concept of excessive force in training environments. Injury is viewed as expected outcome rather than failure of safety measures. Recommend further observation to determine if this represents cultural misunderstanding or actual training philosophy. He looked out the window at the training grounds. In the distance, he could see cadets still running laps in the dark. A human voice shouted encouragement across the field. Zeke's Thor wondered what the next day would bring. If this was how humans began training, he could not imagine what their advanced methods looked like. He made one final note before sleep. Humans may be more formidable than initial intelligence suggested. Further investigation required. Commander Zeke's Thor requested a meeting with the Academy Director on his 3rd day. If he was going to understand human military training, he needed to speak with whoever created these methods. They scheduled him to meet Colonel Brandon Hughes that afternoon. The colonel's office was not what Zeke's Thor expected. The walls displayed weapons from various periods of Earth history. Swords, rifles, and other instruments of combat, hung in careful arrangements. A large wooden desk dominated the room, and behind it sat a gray-haired human male with sharp eyes and numerous medals on his uniform. "Commander Zeke's Thor, please sit," Colonel Hughes said, gesturing to a chair. "I understand you have questions about our training methods." "I do," Zeke's Thor said, settling into the chair with some difficulty. Human furniture was not designed for beings with 4 arms. "I have observed your cadets for 3 days now. Your training methods seem designed to cause harm, rather than prevent it." Colonel Hughes leaned back in his chair. "Interesting perspective. What specifically concerns you?" "Yesterday I watched cadets throw each other through walls. Today I saw them crawl under sharp wire while instructors fired weapons over their heads. One cadet told me she broke 3 fingers and called it normal. Zixthor pulled up his notes. I have documented 43 safety violations according to Confederation standards. I see. The colonel stood and walked to the window. Tell me, Commander, how does the Confederation train soldiers? We use simulation technology. Virtual reality allows trainees to experience combat without actual danger. We measure responses and provide feedback. Injury rates are less than 1%. And how do those soldiers perform in real combat? Zixthor paused. Performance is adequate. Most conflicts are resolved through superior numbers and technology. 2-1. Most conflicts, Colonel Hughes repeated. He turned from the window. But not all. I've read the reports about the border skirmishes with the Kreth Empire. Confederation forces retreated when they encountered equal numbers. Retreat is the logical choice when victory is uncertain. That's where we differ. The colonel returned to his desk. Humans don't retreat easily. We train our soldiers to fight when victory is uncertain. We train them to push beyond what seems possible. By breaking them? By showing them they're stronger than they think. Colonel Hughes pulled up a file on his computer screen. Every exercise we run has a purpose. The underwater escape teaches them to solve problems under pressure. The mountain runs with weight builds endurance. The hand-to-hand combat in the destroyed building teaches adaptability. We don't try to prevent pain, we teach them to work through it. Zixthor made notes rapidly. This philosophy was completely foreign to Confederation thinking. This seems inefficient. Why cause suffering when technology can prevent it? Because technology fails, the colonel said simply. Weapons jam. Communications go down. Simulations can't prepare you for everything, but a soldier who has pushed through real pain, real fear, real exhaustion, that soldier can handle anything. Before Zixthor could respond, an alarm sounded. Tactical planning exercise in room 7. A voice announced over speakers. Come with me, Colonel Hughes said. You should see this. They walked down several corridors to a large room filled with holographic displays. 20 cadets sat around a table studying a battle scenario. The display showed 2 forces, one blue and one red, positioned for combat. The red force outnumbers the blue force 2-1, a cadet named Kevin Zhang explained to his team. Standard tactics say we should retreat and request reinforcements. So we retreat? Another cadet asked. No. Kevin pointed to the terrain. Position half our force on these hills. Let the enemy come through. They'll think we're a smaller force. When they commit to the fight, we hit them from both sides. Zixthor studied the plan. This puts your soldiers directly in danger. The enemy will inflict casualties before you can execute the ambush. Kevin looked at him. Yes, sir. Estimated losses are 20 to 30% of the bait force, but we'll destroy the enemy completely. You would sacrifice your own people? That's what acceptable losses means, Kevin said. An instructor named Tony Bennett stepped forward. Good thinking, Cadet Zhang. Using terrain to offset numbers is classic strategy. And yes, it involves risk. But in war, victory matters more than casualties sometimes. Zixthor was horrified. The Confederation does not accept such thinking. Every life is valuable. We agree, Tony said. That's why we train them to make hard choices now, in practice, rather than freeze when it matters in real combat. The rest of the afternoon continued in similar fashion. Zixthor observed a military history lecture where Professor Bennett described famous battles. The humans seemed to celebrate fights where their side had been vastly outnumbered. The Battle of Thermopylae, Tony said, displaying images. 300 Spartans held a mountain pass against hundreds of thousands of Persians for 3 days. They all died, but they gave their army time to prepare. The cadets took notes eagerly. One raised her hand. Professor Bennett, would we be expected to make similar sacrifices? If the situation required it, Tony said. We train you to complete the mission, whatever the cost. But we also train you to be smart about it. There's a difference between bravery and stupidity. Where is that line? The cadet asked. You'll know it when you see it, Tony said. Or you won't. And you'll learn from the mistake. Either way, the lesson sticks. Later, Zixthor attended a joint exercise between two squads. Cadet Ashley Rodriguez led one team, and Cadet Danny Wright led the other. They were conducting live fire training in a course filled with obstacles. Live fire, Zixthor confirmed with the supervising instructor. They use real ammunition? Reduced power loads, the instructor said. They'll sting if someone gets hit, but won't cause serious damage. It teaches them to respect cover. This is madness. Someone will be injured. Ender. Someone will be injured. Ender. Someone will be injured. Someone will be injured. Ender. Someone will be injured. Ender. 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 Someone will be injured. Ender. Ender. Probably, the instructor agreed. But better a minor injury here than a fatal mistake in actual combat. Zixthor watched as the two teams moved through the course. They communicated with hand signals, covered each other's movements, and fired at targets that popped up randomly. At one point, Danny Wright's team got pinned down by automated defense turrets. Ashley Rodriguez ordered her team to provide covering fire, while Danny's people retreated. Good coordination, the instructor called out. Rodriguez, you exposed your flank to help Wright. Why? He would do the same for me, sir. Ashley responded. Correct answer. The exercise ended with both teams completing their objectives. One cadet had a bruise on his shoulder, from where a round had grazed him, despite his armor. He seemed proud of it. Battle scar, he told his teammates, grinning. That evening, Zixthor observed what the humans called a physical fitness test. All cadets had to complete an obstacle course within a time limit. The course included climbing a rope over a pool of freezing water, crawling under wire mesh while instructors fired training rounds overhead, and carrying weighted dummies up a steep slope. He watched as cadet after cadet pushed themselves to complete the course. Some failed and had to repeat it. Some succeeded but collapsed afterward from exhaustion. All of them got back up and continued with the next task. One cadet, a smaller female, named Brittany Carson, struggled with the dummy carry. The weighted figure was nearly as large as she was. She fell twice, climbing the slope. Both times, she got up and continued. Why not assign her a lighter weight? Zixthor asked Lisa Martinez, who was supervising. Because the enemy won't care about her size, Lisa said. If she needs to carry a wounded soldier, that soldier won't weigh less, just because she's small. She needs to know she can do it. Brittany reached the top of the slope on her third attempt. She set the dummy down and raised both arms in triumph. The other cadets cheered. Zixthor returned to his quarters that night and composed another report. Human military philosophy appears based on controlled suffering. They deliberately expose trainees to pain, danger, and exhaustion, believing this creates stronger soldiers. They celebrate last stands and impossible victories. They teach acceptance of casualties as part of mission completion. This represents fundamental difference from Confederation thinking. He paused in his writing and looked at footage he had recorded that day. The image showed Brittany Carson, at the top of that slope, arms raised, face showing exhaustion and pride. The other cadets cheering for her success. Zixthor added one more line to his report. Despite concerning methods, results show high morale and strong unit cohesion. Humans bond through shared hardship in ways other species do not. Recommend continued observation. He wondered what the Confederation High Command would think of all this. Humans trained their soldiers like they were preparing for the end of the world. Maybe that was exactly what they were doing. Commander Zixthor decided to shadow a single cadet for an entire week. He wanted to understand the full scope of human training from one person's perspective. Instructor Martinez assigned him to follow Cadet Monica Stevens. A second-year student specializing in infantry tactics. Monica's day began at 4:30 in the morning. Zixthor met her at the barracks, already exhausted from staying up late reviewing his notes. Monica looked fresh and alert, despite the early hour. "Morning, Commander," she said. "Ready for the run?" "Run?" Zixthor checked his schedule. There is no run listed in the training plan. The 10-kilometer morning run isn't on the schedule because everyone just does it, Monica explained. It's part of the routine. They ran. Or rather, Monica and 50 other cadets ran, while Zixthor followed in a small electric cart provided by the academy. The humans ran in formation, calling out songs as they moved. The songs were about fighting, dying, and various improbable acts of violence against enemies. "Your songs celebrate death," Zixthor observed. "Their cadence calls," Monica said, not even breathing hard despite running for 30 minutes. "They keep the rhythm and build spirit." After the run came breakfast, which the humans consumed in large quantities. Zixthor noted that they ate nearly twice what Confederation soldiers did. Then came the morning classes. The first class was close quarters combat taught by Master Sergeant Tyler Brooks. The sergeant was a thick-muscled human, with scars on his arms and a permanent stern expression. "Today we're covering incapacitation techniques," Tyler announced. "These are methods to take an opponent out of a fight quickly and efficiently." For the next 2 hours, Zixthor watched as Tyler demonstrated 17 different ways to render someone unconscious, using only hands and body positioning. Each technique had a name and a specific application. "This is called a blood choke," Tyler said, demonstrating on a volunteer cadet. "You cut off blood flow to the brain. They pass out in about 8 seconds." The volunteer's eyes rolled back, and Tyler immediately released him. The cadet woke up a moment later, shook his head, and returned to the line. "You practice these on each other?" Zixthor asked. "Best way to learn," Tyler said. "You need to know what it feels like from both sides. Gives you respect for the technique and teaches you how to counter it." Monica paired up with another cadet named Scott Hamilton. Zixthor watched them practice the techniques Tyler had demonstrated. They moved slowly at first, learning the positions. Then Tyler told them to speed up, half speed now. "Remember, control is more important than strength." The cadets moved faster. Monica attempted a wrist lock on Scott. He countered, spun behind her, and put her in a hold. She tapped his arm twice, and he released immediately. "Good," Tyler called out. "Hamilton, you telegraphed that counter." Stevens would have seen it coming in real combat. Again, after combat training came weapons practice. The shooting range was underground, protected by thick walls. Cadets lined up with their assigned rifles and began firing at targets downrange. Scott Hamilton stepped up to his position. He loaded his weapon, chambered a round, and then did something that made Zixthor's recording device spike. Scott pulled a black cloth from his pocket and tied it over his eyes. "What is he doing?" Zixthor asked the range instructor. "Blindfolded shooting drill," the instructor said. "Advanced marksmanship. He's memorized the range layout and target positions. Now he's testing muscle memory." Scott fired 5 rounds. All 5 hit the center target area. The instructor checked the results and nodded. "Perfect score, Hamilton. Good work." "How is this possible?" Zixthor asked. "Practice," Scott said, removing the blindfold. "I've fired this course 1,000 times. My body knows where to aim, even if my eyes don't." Zixthor made extensive notes. Humans appeared naturally designed for violence, or they had spent so much time training for it that the difference no longer mattered. The afternoon brought survival training. Instructor Jake Morrison gathered 20 cadets in a clearing near the woods. "All right, people. Listen up. You're being dropped in a wilderness environment with minimal supplies. You have 72 hours to reach the extraction point, 10 kilometers north. A hunter force will be trying to capture you. If they tag you, you're out. Questions?" A cadet raised his hand. "What about wild animals? What about them?" Jake said. You're armed with knives and your wits. Figure it out. That's not an answer, the cadet said. It's the only answer you're getting, Jake replied. Welcome to realistic training. Dismissed. Thor followed Monica's team into the woods. The team consisted of 5 cadets, including Monica, Scott, Nicole Baker, Ryan Chen, and Brittany Carson from the obstacle course. They moved quietly through the trees, communicating with hand signals. We should avoid the main trails, Monica whispered. The hunter force will expect us to use those. Agreed, Nicole said. But we need water. There's a stream about 2 kilometers east. They moved toward the stream. Thor struggled to keep up. His Zenthari physiology was not designed for forest movement. Branches caught his uniform, and his feet found every possible route to trip over. Commander, you're making a lot of noise, Ryan Chen pointed out politely. I am not trained for this environment, Thor admitted. Neither were we until they made us do it, Ryan said. You learn fast when failure means going hungry. At the stream, the team filled their canteens and scouted for signs of the hunter force. Scott climbed a tree to get a better view. He came down, shaking his head. I see movement to the south. At least 6 of them, maybe more. We need to move, Monica said. North. Through the rough terrain. They won't expect us to take the hard route. The hard route turned out to involve climbing over rocks, crossing a cold stream, and pushing through thick brush. By evening, the team was exhausted, but had avoided contact with the hunter force. They made a small camp in a dense thicket. No fire, Monica said. Heat signature would give us away. They ate cold rations and took turns keeping watch. Thor observed them throughout the night. Despite their exhaustion, each cadet took their watch seriously, staying alert for the full 2 hours before waking the next person. The next day brought the most alarming training Thor had witnessed yet. Back at the main academy, he observed what humans called chemical warfare simulation. 20 cadets stood outside a sealed room wearing gas masks. Lieutenant Kelly Thompson, a young instructor with red hair, explained the exercise. You'll enter the chamber. We'll introduce tear gas. You'll need to complete a series of tasks while exposed. At the end, you'll remove your mask, state your name and identification number, and exit the chamber. Remove the mask while in the gas? Thor said. That's right, Kelly confirmed. They need to know they can function even when exposed. It builds confidence and shows them the symptoms won't kill them. Just make them very uncomfortable. The first group entered. Through a window, Thor watched them complete various tasks while wearing masks, assembling equipment, reading instructions, communicating with each other. Then came the moment they removed their masks. The reaction was immediate. The cadets began coughing, their eyes streaming with tears. Their faces turned red. But one by one, they shouted their names and numbers and stumbled to the exit. Outside, they continued coughing and spitting, but they were also smiling. That was horrible, one cadet said. Told you it would be, Kelly said. But you did it. Now you know you can work through it if you ever face chemical weapons in real combat. Monica went in with the third group. Thor watched her complete the tasks efficiently, even while wearing the restrictive mask. When she removed it, she had the same reaction as the others. Coughing, tears, red face. But she shouted her information clearly and made it to the exit. Why do this? Thor asked Kelly. Why expose them to poison? Tear gas isn't poison, just a powerful irritant, Kelly said. And we do it because war isn't clean. They need to know they can push through discomfort. That's what makes them effective soldiers. That evening, Thor attended a graduation ceremony for cadets completing advanced combat training. The cadets stood in perfect formation, wearing their dress uniforms. Director Hughes gave a speech about duty, honor, and the warrior spirit. You have been tested, Hughes said. You have been pushed beyond what you thought possible. Some of you broke bones. All of you bled. You cried. You struggled. You wanted to quit. But you didn't quit. You embraced the challenge. You became warriors. The cadets stood straighter, pride evident on their faces. The galaxy is a dangerous place, Hughes continued. Humanity is new to it. We don't have the numbers of the larger species. We don't have centuries of spacefaring experience. What we have is you. Soldiers who refuse to quit. Soldiers who will fight when others retreat. Soldiers who will stand when others fall. That is what makes you dangerous. That is what makes you valuable." Unquote. The ceremony ended with the cadets receiving their certificates. Zeke's Thor watched them celebrate with each other, hugging and laughing despite the formal setting. That night, he composed his longest report yet. Human combat training is designed to create soldiers who view pain, fear, and exhaustion as obstacles to overcome rather than reasons to stop. They train with live weapons, real injuries, and actual chemical exposure. They practice unconsciousness techniques on each other. They are sent into wilderness with predators and told to figure it out. By Confederation standards, this is systematic abuse. By human standards, this is necessary preparation. He paused and added a final note. Observation. Humans bond through shared suffering in ways that create nearly unbreakable unit cohesion. Recommend Confederation High Command reassess human military capability ratings. Initial estimates may be significantly too low. Commander Zeke's Thor thought he had seen everything the human academy could show him. He was wrong. Week 4 brought what Instructor Martinez called unit cohesion training, which apparently meant deliberately torturing cadets together so they would like each other. "You're going to participate in this one," Lisa told him over breakfast. "Participate?" Zeke's Thor set down his eating utensil. "I am an observer. You've been observing for a month. Director Hughes thinks you should experience human training firsthand. Nothing dangerous. Just a field exercise." Define nothing dangerous. Lisa smiled in that way humans did when they were about to say something concerning. 72 hours in the field, with Cadet Carson's squad. No sleep. No sleep for 3 days? That violates biological necessity. "You can sleep when you're dead," Lisa said cheerfully. "That's what Sergeant Brooks always says." Zeke's Thor wanted to point out that lack of sleep would lead to death much faster than sleeping would. But the logic seemed lost on humans. The exercise began at midnight. Zeke's Thor met Brittany Carson's squad at the edge of the training area. The squad consisted of Brittany, Jake Sullivan, Megan Foster, Tony Martinez, and 2 others named Carl Ross and Diana Price. They all wore field gear and carried heavy packs. "Commander Zeke's Thor will be joining us," Brittany announced. "He's here to observe, but he'll have to keep up. No special treatment." "Understood," Zeke's Thor said, adjusting his own pack. "First checkpoint is 10 kilometers north," Brittany said. "We have 6 hours to get there. Move out." They moved through the darkness using only small lights attached to their gear. Zeke's Thor discovered that walking 10 kilometers with a heavy pack was much harder than watching other people do it. His legs began hurting after the first hour. "You okay, Commander?" Jake Sullivan asked. "I am functional," Zeke's Thor said, though this was barely true. "Good. Because it gets worse." Jake was correct. At the 2-hour mark, they reached a river. The water moved fast, and even in the darkness, Zeke's Thor could tell it was deep. "We're crossing here?" he asked. "That's what the map says," Brittany confirmed. She was studying a handheld device. "Water's cold, current's strong. We rope ourselves together for safety." They tied a length of rope between all 7 of them. Brittany entered the water first. It came up to her chest immediately. The current pushed against her, but she fought forward, step by step. The others followed. Zeke's Thor stepped into the river and understood instantly why humans use the word freezing to describe cold water. The temperature dropped his core body heat within seconds. The current pulled at his legs. Only the rope connecting him to the others kept him moving forward. Halfway across, his foot slipped on a smooth rock. He went under. The cold water shocked his system. He flailed with all four arms. Panic. Rising. Then hands grabbed him, multiple sets of human hands, and pulled him upright. "I've got you," Tony Martinez said, holding Zix Thor steady. "Keep moving. Don't stop." They made it across. On the far bank, they collapsed for a moment. Water streaming from their clothes. Zix Thor's entire body shook from cold. "That was unpleasant," he managed to say. "Welcome to field training," Diana Price said, wringing water from her hair. "Come on. We need to keep moving, or we'll freeze." The next checkpoint required navigating through a forest in the dark. Instructors had set up flash charges that detonated randomly, simulating artillery fire. The explosions were loud and bright, destroying Zix Thor's night vision each time one went off. "This is meant to be realistic?" he asked after the fifth explosion made him jump. "Combat is loud and confusing," Brittany said. "This teaches us to work through it." By dawn, they had been awake for 24 hours. Zix Thor's vision was blurring. His legs felt like they belonged to someone else. The humans looked tired but kept moving. "Checkpoint 3 requires problem solving," Brittany read from her device. "We have to build a bridge across a ravine using only the materials provided." At the ravine, they found logs, rope, and tools. The gap was about 5 meters wide and 10 meters deep. Carl Ross, who apparently had engineering training, took charge of the bridge construction. "We'll build a simple rope bridge with wooden slats," Carl explained. "Commander, you help Tony with the rope work. Your extra arms will be useful." For the first time since arriving at the academy, Zix Thor felt like his physiology was an advantage. He could tie knots and hold ropes while the humans worked on other parts. They built the bridge over 3 hours, working together efficiently despite their exhaustion. "Test it," Brittany said when they finished. Jake Sullivan volunteered to cross first. The bridge swayed and creaked but held his weight. One by one, they all crossed. Zix Thor went last, trying not to look down at the ravine below. By the second night, Zix Thor was hallucinating. He saw lights that weren't there and heard voices when no one spoke. The humans admitted they were having similar experiences. "Hour 48 is when it gets weird," Megan Foster said. "Your brain starts making up things because it needs sleep." "Then why not sleep?" Zix Thor asked. "Because in combat, you might not be able to," Brittany said. "We need to know we can function, even when exhausted beyond reason." The third day brought the trust exercise. Zix Thor watched as the squad arrived at a 3-story building. An instructor stood at the top with safety equipment. "Trust fall exercise," the instructor called down. "One at a time. You'll fall backward off the building. Your squad will catch you with the net." "This is not real military training," Zix Thor protested. "It absolutely is," Brittany said. "In combat, you have to trust your unit completely. This proves it." Megan Foster went first. She climbed to the top, stood at the edge with her back to empty air, and fell. The squad held the net tight. Megan bounced once and laughed. "Your turn, Commander," Brittany said. "Absolutely not. You said no special treatment," Jake reminded him. Zix Thor climbed the building slowly. At the top, he looked down at the squad holding the net. It seemed impossibly small. His instincts screamed at him not to fall backward into nothing. "You can do it, Commander," Deanna called up. "We've got you." Zix Thor closed his eyes and fell. The sensation of dropping was horrible. Then the net caught him, the squad holding it firm. They lowered him to the ground, safely. "See?" Tony said, grinning. "You trusted us, and we didn't let you fall. I still don't understand the purpose." "You will," Tony said. The final exercise was a simulated combat scenario. They had been awake for 68 hours. All of them were exhausted, filthy, and operating on autopilot. The scenario presented them with an impossible situation. "Enemy force has captured civilians," the scenario instructor explained. "Your squad must rescue them. The enemy outnumbers you 5 to 1. You have limited ammunition and no backup. Begin. They entered the simulation area, which was a mock-up of a small village. Enemy targets appeared randomly. The squad moved together like they had one mind. Brittany called out orders. Jake covered the left flank. Tony covered the right. Diana scouted ahead. Carl watched their rear. Megan coordinated movements. Zixthor found himself moving with them, responding to their signals without thinking. When Jake needed covering fire, Zixthor provided it. When Tony called for suppression, Zixthor was already in position. His extra arms allowed him to carry equipment and still fire his training weapon. They completed the scenario in 17 minutes. The theoretical casualties were high, but they rescued the civilians. The squad collapsed afterward, too exhausted to celebrate. "How did we do?" Brittany asked the instructor. "Better than most," the instructor said. "You functioned as a unit. Even when individually, you were barely functional. That's the point." That night, after 72 hours, they were finally allowed to sleep. But first came the tradition Zixthor had heard about. The squad gathered for what humans called a team dinner. They sat around a table in the cafeteria, eating food that tasted better than anything Zixthor had ever consumed. Probably because he was starving. They talked about the exercise, joking about mistakes and praising good decisions. "Remember when the commander fell in the river?" Tony said, laughing. All four arms flailing around. "You looked like a drowning spider," Carl added. Zixthor would have been offended, but they were laughing with him, not at him. "But you didn't," Brittany said. "You kept going. That's what matters." They raised their drinks in a toast. "To the squad," Megan said, "and to our Zenthari brother, who survived his first field exercise." Zixthor found himself raising his cup with the others. Somewhere during the 72 hours, something had changed. He had stopped being an observer and become part of the group. They had suffered together, worked together, trusted each other with their lives. Later, lying in his quarters finally able to sleep, Zixthor understood what the humans were doing. They didn't just train soldiers. They forged bonds through shared hardship that made individuals into unbreakable units. Pain and exhaustion were tools to create something stronger than any individual. He made one note before sleep took him. Humans bond through shared suffering in ways no other species does. This makes their military units nearly unbreakable. A human squad is not 7 individuals. It is one entity with 7 bodies. This is their true strength. Commander Zixthor entered his 12th and final week at the Human Academy. 3 months had passed since his arrival, and he barely recognized the officer who had stepped off that transport shuttle. That officer had been certain humans were inefficient, overly violent, and poorly trained. The current officer knew better. His final week coincided with the graduation ceremony for the senior cadets. These were the students who would soon join the Confederation military forces as commissioned officers. Director Hughes had requested that Zixthor observe their final examination, something called the impossible scenario. Every graduating class faces this test, Colonel Hughes explained as they walked to the simulation center. "We design a scenario that cannot be won. No matter what choices they make, they will fail. The test isn't about winning. It's about how they handle failure. Why test them on something impossible? Because war gives us impossible situations," Hughes said. "We need to know our officers can still make decisions when victory isn't an option." The simulation center was the largest training facility in the academy. 50 graduating cadets stood in their squads, waiting for the scenario to begin. Zixthor recognized many faces from his observations: Amy Collins, Kevin Zhang, Ashley Rodriguez, Monica Stevens, Scott Hamilton, and others. The scenario activated. A holographic display showed a civilian colony under attack by superior forces. The cadet squads had to defend the colony with limited resources against an enemy that kept getting reinforced. There was no way to win. Zixthor watched squad leader Tony Martinez make the first hard decision. We can't hold all 3 settlements. Evacuate the smallest one. Concentrate our forces on the 2 larger populations. It was the logical choice, but it meant abandoning civilians. The theoretical casualties mounted. Tony's face showed the pain of the decision, but he didn't freeze. He kept giving orders, adapting to each new problem. Ashley Rodriguez's squad tried a different approach. They called for a retreat and regrouped at a defensive position, buying time for civilian evacuation. But the enemy flanked them. More theoretical casualties. Ashley revised her strategy, splitting her force to cover more area. It didn't work. The enemy overwhelmed them, position by position. Kevin Zhang attempted an aggressive counterattack, using all his forces in one massive push. It failed. His theoretical casualties were the highest of any squad, but he had managed to destroy a significant portion of the enemy force before being overwhelmed. Every squad failed. Every squad leader made hard choices, watched their people die in the simulation, and had to keep functioning anyway. Some handled it better than others. A few cadets broke down emotionally during the scenario. The instructors didn't stop them. They let the emotion happen, then made the cadets continue anyway. After 2 hours, the scenario ended. The cadets stood in silence, processing their failures. Director Hughes stepped forward. "Congratulations," he said. "You all failed exactly as we expected you to. Now tell me what you learned." 8. Tony Martinez spoke first. His voice was rough with emotion. "I learned that sometimes there are no good choices, only less bad ones, and that I have to live with those choices, even when they haunt me." "Good," Hughes said. "What else?" "I learned that even when we fail the mission, we can still save some lives," Ashley Rodriguez said. "And that matters." "I learned that aggression without strategy just gets people killed faster," Kevin Zhang admitted. "But I'd make the same choice again if I thought it gave us the best chance." One by one, the cadets shared their lessons. They talked about failure, about impossible choices, about living with casualties. They talked about not freezing, about trusting their training, about doing their best even when their best wasn't enough. Thor realized this was the point. The humans trained their officers to function even in failure. They taught them to make hard choices under stress. They forced them to confront their own emotions about casualties and death while in a safe environment, so they wouldn't freeze when it happened for real. That evening, Thor attended the formal graduation ceremony. The cadets wore their dress uniforms and stood in perfect formation. Family members filled the audience. Thor sat with the faculty, watching as the cadets received their commissions. Director Hughes gave the final speech. 3 months ago, you were students. Today, you are officers. Tomorrow, you join the Confederation military forces. Some of you will see combat. All of you will face challenges that seem impossible. You will be asked to make decisions no person should have to make. You will lead soldiers into danger. Some of those soldiers will not come back." The audience was silent. The cadets stood at attention, listening to every word. "But you are ready," Hughes continued. "Not because you never fail. You will fail. But because when you fail, you will get back up. You will learn from it. You will do better next time. You have been broken and rebuilt. You have been tested beyond what most species consider reasonable. You are warriors, in the truest sense. And more importantly, you are human. That means you don't quit, you don't surrender, you don't give up on your people or your mission. That is what makes you valuable to the Confederation. That is what makes you dangerous to our enemies." The ceremony ended with the traditional commissioning oath. Thor listened as Amy Collins stood before the director and raised her right hand. "I solemnly swear to defend Earth and her interests, to serve the Confederation with honor, to lead with courage and compassion, to never abandon my duty or my people, to uphold the standards of the service, and to face whatever challenges come with determination and heart. By the authority granted to me, I commission you as Second Lieutenant Amy Collins, Hughes said, handing her a set of insignia. Congratulations, Lieutenant. The process repeated for each graduating cadet. Zeke's Thor watched families embrace their newly commissioned officers. He saw tears of pride and joy. He saw the bonds between cadets who had suffered together and would now serve together. After the ceremony, Zeke's Thor interviewed several graduates. He asked them why they chose military service. Amy Collins answered first. I joined to serve my planet and protect people who can't protect themselves. Someone has to stand between civilians and danger. I want to be that person. Excellent people seeing. Kevin Zhang had a different answer. I wanted to test my limits and become part of something greater than myself. The military gives me purpose, and brothers and sisters who will stand with me no matter what. Ashley Rodriguez smiled. My father was military, his mother was military. It's in my blood. I want to honor that tradition by being the best soldier and officer I can be. Monica Stevens said simply, because someone has to do it. And I'm willing. That night, Zeke's Thor began his final report to the Galactic Confederation High Command. He had accumulated 3 months of observations, video recordings, and analysis. He organized it carefully, knowing this report would influence how the Confederation viewed humanity for years to come. Final report on human military training methods, he began typing. After 12 weeks of observation at Earth's premier military academy, I submit the following findings. First observation. Humans possess extraordinarily high pain tolerance and consider physical hardship to be character building rather than damage to avoid. They break bones and continue training. They exhaust themselves to the point of hallucination and call it necessary. Their definition of acceptable suffering exceeds any other species in the Confederation by a factor of 10. Second observation. Human military training is designed to forge warriors who will fight beyond rational limits. They view surrender as a last resort rather than a reasonable option when outmatched. They celebrate last stands and impossible victories. They teach officers to make decisions that result in casualties and to live with those decisions. Standard Confederation military theory does not account for this mindset. Third observation. Humans form emotional bonds through shared adversity that makes their units nearly unbreakable under pressure. A human military unit is not a collection of individuals. It is a single organism with multiple bodies. They will die to protect each other. They will attempt impossible missions if their unit members are in danger. This pack bonding instinct makes them unpredictable and dangerous. Fourth observation. Humans are individually formidable, but collectively terrifying. Their pack bonding, combined with their refusal to abandon comrades and their tendency to attempt missions other species consider impossible, creates a force multiplier that standard military calculations do not account for. A squad of 10 humans can perform at the level of 30 soldiers from other species, not due to superior technology or numbers, but due to superior will. Zeke's Thor paused in his writing and pulled up video of the graduation ceremony. He watched Director Hughes give his speech again, listening to the words about not quitting, not surrendering, not giving up. He continued typing. Recommendations for Galactic Confederation High Command. First, never underestimate human military forces, regardless of size or technology level. Second, never assume humans will retreat when outnumbered or outgunned. They often do the opposite. Third, never expect humans to follow conventional military wisdom. Their tactics are based on aggression and adaptation rather than studied doctrine. Fourth, when possible, ensure humans are fighting alongside Confederation forces rather than against them. The alternative would be catastrophic. Additional recommendation. Establish joint training programs with human military academies. Other species could benefit from studying human methods, particularly their approach to unit cohesion and mental resilience training. While their physical training methods may be too extreme for most species, their psychological approach to stress and failure has universal application. Zix Thor added one final section to his report: personal observations. When I arrived at this academy, I was horrified by what I witnessed. I documented safety violations, cruel training methods, and what appeared to be systematic abuse. I recommended stopping the exchange program and limiting human involvement in Confederation military operations. I was wrong. What I interpreted as cruelty was actually efficiency. What I saw as abuse was actually preparation for the realities of war. Humans understand something other species have forgotten. War is terrible, and soldiers must be prepared for that terrible reality. They don't shield their trainees from pain and fear. They expose them to it in controlled doses, building immunity like a vaccine against disease. More importantly, I came to respect human warriors. They are brave, dedicated, and surprisingly compassionate despite their violent training. They fight to protect others, not for conquest. They value life even as they prepare to take it. They are warriors with hearts, and that combination makes them both dangerous and admirable. The galaxy is safer with humanity as allies. I am proud to have observed their training and honored to call several humans my friends. The Confederation should embrace Earth's membership fully and learn from their unique approach to military service. He signed the report with his full name and title. Tomorrow, he would present it to Director Hughes before transmitting it to Confederation High Command. He expected controversy. Some officials would reject his findings as too favorable to humans. Others would be alarmed by his description of human capabilities. But Zix Thor had one more task to complete. He composed a personal message to Brittany Carson's squad, the humans who had accepted him during the field exercise. To Squad Carson, thank you for allowing me to participate in your training. You taught me that strength comes in many forms, and that courage is not the absence of fear, but action despite it. You pulled me from a river, caught me when I fell, and treated me as one of your own. I will not forget that. May your service be long, and your battles few. But if battle comes, I pity any enemy who faces you. Signed, Commander Zix Thor of the Zenthari, honorary member of Squad Carson. He sent the message and looked out the window at the training grounds one last time. In the distance, a new class of cadets was running their morning formation, calling out their songs about fighting and dying and never giving up. Zix Thor smiled, an expression he had learned from humans. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. Humanity had joined the stars, and nothing would ever be the same. His final note in his personal journal read, "They call themselves warriors. They call themselves protectors. They call themselves soldiers. But after 3 months, among them, I know what they truly are. They are humans, and that is the most dangerous thing in the galaxy."